Is the Philippines a dangerous place to visit? There seems to be a bit of a new phenomenon at the moment, with people considering the Philippines to be a scary place that should be avoided. Down Under Visa have had a few cases recently of Filipino ladies with Australian sponsors trying to get Australian tourist visas when they haven't met in person, which is basically a guarantee of getting a visa refusal. When I ask why they haven't met, it's because the Australian boyfriend feels the Philippines is far too dangerous to visit. We haven't had many like this, and maybe we won't get any more. However, I thought it was time for a bit of clarification. I live here, and I've been here for over 6 years, and I feel perfectly safe. You need to exercise reasonable caution for the simple fact of being a have in a country with lots of have-nots. There is a high disparity of income and opportunities, far more than you will ever see in Australia. Where I lived in Australia before, which was a semi-rural area, I left doors open. Obviously I wouldn't do that here, but we don't live in terror. The issue with tourist visas when you haven't met. If you haven't met in person, they won't grant a tourist visa. Full stop. Years ago, yes, they used to. Then they stopped, saying you're too busy, or having medical conditions that make travel difficult, and definitely saying scared of terrorists won't persuade them otherwise. They need to ensure that only genuine visitors enter Australia, and they feel that having the sponsor make the effort to travel here to visit her is a minimum that they should expect. Prior to that, yes, there were low-life characters in Australia who would get a tourist visa for a girl they'd never met, a free sex for 3 months, and then send her back and do it all over again with a different girl. Australia wants high standards, and they have a job to do. Now, perceived risk factors in the Philippines: kidnapping and terrorism. It's a risk. Yes, there are terrorist groups here. There are Islamic separatists who want to establish an independent state in Mindanao, the Abu Sayyaf, the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, the MNLF, Jamaah Islamiyah, however you say that, sorry, I never actually tried to say that before. Islamiyah, yes, yeah, I was correct. And possibly ISIS are active in areas of Mindanao. Primarily they have a few battles with the government, and they're not adverse to kidnapping for ransom. And they do some bombing on occasion, such as the recent bombing in Davao City. Scary stuff, no doubt. But to get things into proportion, there were something like 51 kidnappings for ransom in the Philippines in 2014. Mexico had about 12,000, and even the US city of Phoenix in Arizona has reported 200 kidnappings for ransom per year. But there's no one issues travel warnings about the US. Most of these terrorist and kidnapping activities are confined to the trouble spots, central and western Mindanao, including Zamboanga Peninsula, Sulu Archipelago. They're best avoided. I wouldn't go there myself. Otherwise, just exercise some caution. Remember, you're not in Australia, and you are perceived as a rich man, and you will stand out in a crowd, especially in the rural areas. Try not to advertise your travel plans to all and sundry. Arrive and leave without anyone knowing when or where. And ask your girl to keep all of this under wraps too. And in the cities, especially places like Ermita, Malate, and any of the bar areas, watch out for pickpockets, things being slipped into your drinks, and various scams with underage girls and hotel rooms, etc. But outside of the trouble spots, you have very little to worry about from terrorists and kidnappings. The other issue is the Philippines dangerous because of President Duterte? There is an expression of exasperation here which goes, "Hey, knuckle." I'm thinking it to myself right now. Rodrigo Duterte reminds me a little of myself, a man who wears polo shirts and swears readily, I find it hard not to like. Remember the old days in Australia of the blunt, in-your-face Aussie politicians like Joh Bjelke-Petersen? He would tell journalists they could go and jump in the lake. Well, President Duterte says putang ina when journalists ask him what Barack Obama would think of his crime reduction measures. Now, Joe didn't swear, but nor did he tell the press details about his visits to his mistresses. But as Aussies loved and responded to his down-to-earth approach, they do the same here to a man who serves pandesal, mongo and fried banana at his inauguration feast instead of lobster and champagne. Now, Duterte is blunt. He has a big mouth. A huge change from the elitists who've run this country since independence. The fact that he's challenged the powers that be, the same people who run the media, it may well have something to do with the way that the news is reported. And foreign media seem to feel they have the right to make audacious reports like the licence to kill nonsense on Australia's 60 Minutes, which they would never do about a non-Asian head of state. He says putang ina at some journalists while reminding them that he's answerable to the Filipino people and not to Obama. Now that's an expression that 99% of the population here will use if they stub their toe. And the newspapers say he's calling Obama's mother a prostitute. Again, hey knuckle. Yes, that's a nice picture of President Duterte. The rule of law still exists here. There's no running gun battles in the street. Now, he's offered legal protection to police who are forced to defend themselves when they're arresting low-life scum drug dealers, and that has led to some deaths. It's also led to a massive number of arrests. There is no dead or alive vigilante program going on here. He'd be far more likely to get caught in the crossfire in Obama's hometown of Chicago. So, please relax. Come visit. Don't go camping in Sulu wearing a US flag t-shirt. Don't count your money at an ATM in Ermita while facing the street. Exercise some sense and be aware you're not in Hobart. Do that and you will be fine. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it and you would like to subscribe, you can click on the little button down the bottom corner there and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. There are regular articles on aspects of Australian visas to the Philippines on www.downundervisa.com.au. There's a blog page you can subscribe to. There is a free visa assessment form, and there are regular articles on aspects of Australian-Filipino relationships, which you can see on www.filipinowives.com.au. If you can please share these articles and these videos on any of the social media that you use, we would appreciate that. Thank you.